Hello, this is Keir from XenForo with another development environment setup tutorial. We've previously looked at Windows 10 and we used Laragon to get something set up there. Then we moved on to macOS and we used Homebrew to set up a version that could serve PHP 5.6, 7.4 and 8.0 all out of a single version of Apache without having to do any switching. Today we're going to do something very similar with Linux. So here we are in Ubuntu. I've already installed Visual Studio Code and TablePlus, and I'll look at instructions for those later on. And I've also got ready the Xdebug helper for Firefox, which we're going to be using later on. We've already done tutorials for Chrome and Safari, so seeing as Firefox comes installed by default in Ubuntu, we'll be using that. TablePlus is installed on the command line with these commands. It's currently in alpha for Linux, but it's well worth looking at. And Visual Studio Code comes from here. So let's open up Visual Studio Code and see if we can get this thing up and running. Now, I've got a bunch of commands here that we're going to be running, and while they are running, I will talk about some of them. So let's get a terminal open. And we'll start off by telling the system that it's got some new repositories that we need to use. So first of all, it's this one, which has multiple versions of PHP going right back beyond 5.6. So we'll have that. The next two commands here are all about getting the TablePlus repository set up, but I've already done that, so I'm not going to bother with those. Then we're going to have these ones, which are about the Elasticsearch repository. In they go. And next we just need to tell the system to make sure that it's got the latest versions of everything that it knows about. So we'll run those and wait for them to do their stuff. Like I said, we are not going to do the TablePlus install because that's already done. But what we're going to do after that is move on to these PHP commands. So first of all, we want to make sure that we've got PHP FPM for 5.6, and off it goes. Because we're running a relatively new and well supported distribution of Linux, namely Ubuntu 20 something, nearly all the software that we need is available in pre-compiled form, which means that the downloads will be a lot smaller and the installations will be a lot quicker. So I'm just going to go through and get these done, and you'll see that we're whizzing through these. PHP 5.6, no, I don't want 5.6, I want 7.4. That's better. And once that's done, we'll go and take a look at PHP 8. Once this has gone through, I'm just going to double check that we do actually have the correct versions installed correctly, because while I've been testing this, I have noticed that at one point it only installed one copy of PHP properly. So I'll just double check that in a moment. And the way I'm going to do that is just open up a terminal and I'll do it there. Let's say cd2/etc php, and we've got the 3 directories for the versions of PHP we've installed, and I should just be able to say that's fine, because as long as it's got this fpm directory, then all is good. Let's do that for all of them. Good and good. Right, that's lucky. So now we'll carry on with these commands and get those run. That was pair, which provides the PECL system and various other things like that. And finally memcache, which can be useful if you are testing anything that needs to run with memcache. And now we're going to switch over to this PHP modules script, which is a little nested loop I've written, which will install all of those modules for PHP for versions 7.4, 5.6 and 8.0. So let's just make sure that that will actually run. So I'll flag it as executable and then we'll run it. And while that's going, because that'll take a few minutes, we'll get Visual Studio Code and everything else set up. So let's go to File, Preferences and Settings, and change the things I like to change, namely the autosave and the position of the debug toolbar from floating to docked. Then I want to go into my extensions and find the built-in PHP and remove the language features. Then I want to install some modules. I want PHP IntelliFence and PHP debug. I want, let's type that properly, Visual Studio IntelliCode, the SQL tools for MySQL and MariaDB, and then helpers for config files and ini files. That's all good. Right, how are we doing here? We are currently on curl, so there's a little more to go. So let's go and take a look in my files directory. I'm going to make my document root live in my documents directory as a www folder. And let's open that with Visual Studio Code and save a workspace as into my documents folder, www code workspace. That's all good. And then I want to create a configuration for that for debugging PHP. That's all fine. And then we will go and create a little test file called info.php, which is going to contain PHP info. And how are we doing? Still some time to go, so let's go and grab the downloads folder and grab the stuff that I've got in there as well. So I've got the info zip from the macOS tutorial, so I'm going to open that and extract that into here. And I've also got XenForo 1.5 and XenForo 2.2.3 so that we can do a little demo with those. So let's see if that's all done. Oh, I didn't want to maximize that. There we go. Upload. That was, which one did I do first? I think it was 1.5, wasn't it? So let's call it XF15, and then we'll have the upload folder from XF2. Lovely. And we'll rename that to XF22, and we'll play around with those in a moment. Okay, back here. How are we doing? That's soap, and soap is one of the last modules, I think. Oh, we've still got zip, enchant, and SQL3. Okay, let's carry on for a minute then. Let's go and set up the htaccess files in the info directory. So let's refresh that. Where have I put all these? Oh, I've put them into the documents directory instead of the www folder. So let's just move those in. And that's better. Right, so now where's my info folder? The htaccess file needs to be active, and you need to be, come on, become, you need to be active too, and so do you. That's all ready. And oh good, we're ready. So back up here, and then we can get Apache 2 installed. Let's have that and paste it in. This will be a nice quick installation. And then because we're going to be using the Fast CGI Process Manager, FPM, we need to enable the proxy FCGI mod for Apache. So we'll just run that. This is a2nmod Apache 2 enable module. That's good. And now we're going to run Elasticsearch installation. Actually, I'm not going to actually run that right now because it takes quite a while to download. It's quite a big download, and I'm not going to be using it for the demo, so I'll just leave that there for you to run in your own time. But then I want to grab these two to install MariaDB and then secure the installation because we've got a little bit of configuration to do on that. So we'll just wait for that to come through. And while it's happening, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why we need to do some configuration on this. After we secure the installation, which will be, oh, it didn't actually copy that line, so let's have it and run it manually. If you've watched the macOS tutorial, you'll know what we're doing here. We do need to set a new root password, and I'm just going to set it to root and root. No, I don't want to remove anonymous users. I don't want to disable root login. I don't remove the test database, and I do want to remove, reload the privilege tables. Now, if I were to now try and log in, MySQL -u root -p, and put in the password I've just provided, it won't let me in. And that is because MariaDB will automatically set itself to use Unix socket authentication, which that is not. So to get around that, we need to load MySQL's client using sudo, and in we go. And that will let us in. And so while we're in here, now we can run some commands to disable that behavior. So I'm going to use the MySQL database. I'm going to update user set plugin equals nothing. And then I'm going to flush privileges. And now if I exit that, I should be able to run MySQL without the sudo additional qualifier, and it's working fine. This is all good. So now I can go ahead and configure Apache and PHP. To get PHP and Apache configured, we're going to need to open up a new terminal. So let's get that open, and then let's start off by configuring Apache. I'm actually going to be doing almost all of my Apache configuration in a single file so that it's easy to identify. So let's sudo nano slash etc. Apache 2 sites enabled 000 default.conf. This is a virtual host definition. Let's allow that to have it. And you can see that this is telling it that right now the document root is in var www.html. So I'm going to open up some space in here and just plop all of my useful stuff in here. I don't need the listen 80 because that's part of the virtual host definition. So I'll just have those two, and then I'm going to have the directory index directive and the virtual host stuff, although I'm going to get rid of that virtual host 80 thing in a minute. So let's paste that in there, get rid of that opening virtual host, and then I need to make that agree with the Linux system here. So that is home care documents www. Then those options will all work, and then the all-important FastTGI handler on port 9080. Save that out. That all looks good. So now let's get on with PHP. For the most part, we're going to be leaving the PHP configuration alone because the Debian Ubuntu configuration is actually fairly decent. But we do need to set up Xdebug to work the way we want it to. So let's just go and find the commands for Xdebug, which are these and those. This is for Xdebug 2 and this is for Xdebug 3. So let's get that set up. Sudo nano etc. PHP 5.6 mods available xdebug.ini, and then we just need to grab hold of those 3 lines there and paste those in. Only once though. Oh dear, let's try that again. How did I get into here? I have no idea what I've just done there. FG to return to nano. Well, now you see something new every day, don't you? Let's get rid of those and paste it in properly again. Fine. Okay, and now we want the same for 7.4 and 8.0, but this time using this configuration here. So grab hold of that and paste it in underneath, and then do 8.0. Same again. Save that out. No, that's fine. And now I need to do the FPM configuration. So this time it's sudo nano etc PHP 5.6 FPM pool.d x.conf. I'm using x.conf again in case there's any other pools set up. The reasons why are described in the macOS tutorial. We'll open that up and I'm just going to have user equals care listen equals 127.0.0.1 PHP version without the decimal point 9056. Fine. Let's save that before I come out. I'll just have a copy of that and then we'll save it. And now we're going to go in and do 7.4. Paste it in. Port. Oh, that didn't copy the right stuff at all. Never mind. We'll type it again. User equals care listen equals 127.0.0.1 colon 9074. Okay, and then we'll do 8.0, and rather than mucking up the copy paste again, we'll just type it. User equals care listen equals 127.0.0.0.9080. Done. Save. Right, let's get all the services restarted to make sure that they're using the latest configuration, and then cross our fingers. So sudo system control restart Apache 2 and PHP 5.6 service, PHP 7.4 service, and PHP 8 service. Right, moment of truth. Let's open up HTTP localhost. Okay, so it's opened the right directory. That's a good start. And if we open up the info directory, we should see PHP 8, PHP 7, and PHP 5.6 all running with Xdebug 3.02, also Xdebug 3.02, and Xdebug 2.5.5. This is great. Let's get XenForo installed and check that we can run two different versions. Okay, let's start off with XenForo 1.5. So let's open up a new window and we'll head to localhost. Will that take me there? No, it won't. Okay. HTTP localhost. We'll open up the XF22 directory and it says it's ready. It's not quite ready because we don't have a database yet for it. So let's give it one. MySQL -u root -p and then the password. And now here we are. I'm going to create database XenForo 22x, and while we're here I'll do one for XenForo 1.5 as well. That's good. That should all be up and running. So now we can start the installation. Hit begin, put in the correct credentials, XenForo 22x, save the config, and you might have noticed that it just drops the config file in there. That's great. So let's cd to xf22, and now we will run the actual installer. So that's going to be php command.php xf:install. Right, let's use defaults where we can. Username is going to be admin, password is going to be password, confirm password, primary board email example@example.com, board title XenForo 2.2 on Linux, and it's going to be at http://localhost/xf22, I believe. Yep, that's all good. Right, off it goes. Now we might as well do XenForo 1.5 while we're here, hadn't we? So let's have another new tab and go to http://localhost/xf15. Now this is probably going to give me loads of errors. No, it doesn't give me loads of errors, which is a little bit worrying, but it's certainly not giving me anything else either, is it? So let's go and set up the htaccess file for that. So close that one up for now and have a look into xf15, and we'll see that there's an htaccess file for it already. So let's go and grab the PHP 5.6 directive from here, and then we'll paste it into the bottom of, not the library folder, that one there. Let's just stick it in the end there and see if that works. So refresh that now. There we go. We're running in PHP 5.6. So let's hit begin on that. Username root, password root, and XenForo 15x. Test and generate, and continue. Let's go. So that's going to carry on in the browser while this stuff finishes off generating master data, and then by the time that's all done, we should have XenForo 1.5 and XenForo 2.2 all running on the same server simultaneously, which is fantastic. Let's see how we're doing. We're on phrases here and templates here. Let's have a look at the database while it's going. We've got XenForo 2.2 selected here. So let's refresh that. And there's all the tables for XenForo 2.2 in TablePlus. Most of the stuff you see here is pretty much identical to the Mac version of TablePlus that I talked about in the macOS tutorial. It's just as good. There's a few missing functions like creating a new database, but there are weekly updates to this stuff. XenForo 1.5 is done, so let's go admin, password, example at example.com, create the administrator, no thanks. That's all good. XenForo 1.5 on Linux. Let's go into the control panel, admin, password, fine. And here we are, we're running. Let's get that up and running. There's XenForo 1.5 running very nicely. And how are we doing on 2.2? Oh, there we go, that's ready. All done. Let's see if we can get into XenForo 2.2 then. Wonderful. Got the saved login there. There's XenForo 1.5 and 2.2 both running simultaneously. No PHP version switching required. So while we're here, let's just check that debugging works as well. Let's work on XenForo 2.2, and we'll notice that on a local site, the little debug gadget turns up. So we'll turn that on to debug, and then we will close this lot down so that we can just access XenForo 2.5, 2.2 even. Open index.php, and I'll set a breakpoint on this require, and then switch over to the debug view and turn on the listener. So now we've got everything ready to go, and let's hit refresh, and here we are, we're in debug mode. So we've got access to the super globals and the currently enabled local variables. So let's step over that, and then let's step into XFStart, skip down into that. Let's have a look at what's in start system. Let's come back out to that. That's not very interesting. And I know, let's take a look in run app into there, and then let's have a look at setup app class. We're stepping into that. Skip over there, go into set app. This is where we set whether or not we've already set up an app. So by and large, that is roughly what we want to be seeing when we've got a debugger running. It doesn't seem to have timed out yet, so I think that the timeout directive that we put into our virtual host of 3600 seconds, namely 1 hour, seems to be working. And generally speaking, this all looks good. So let's let that continue. So let's very, very quickly take a look into XenForo 1.5 as well, shall we? Let's go in here and take XenForo 1.5. Let's start from the main index page and set a breakpoint on there. Tell it to debug. Let's turn off the debug on there for now and see if that works. So here we are. Oh, that didn't work. I think I know why. Here we are. We're into XenForo 1.5. Back to the debug view. Moving across, and let's go take a look at initialize. So that all seems to be working just fine. So I hope this tutorial was useful for you. if you want to do this configuration on Debian, the list of commands you need to run are almost identical, apart from the fact that that Andre PPJ repository needs to be replaced with the Debian specific one. If you just head to suri.org, you will see the differences between the Debian config and the Andre PHP repository. So just switch those over early in the installation process and everything else will work just fine.